Welcome to Organizational Sherlocks, the podcast where business meets psychology and your organizational puzzles meet their match.
Join us for captivating stories and practical solutions to unravel your toughest challenges.
I'm Dr. Elizabeth Flemming.
And I am not Morgan Ashworth, your guides to a prescription for business success.
Let's dive in. Well, hello, listeners. As you can tell, it is I, Dr. Elizabeth Flemming here, but not with Morgan Ashworth today. In our previous episode, Darian joined us, or joined Morgan, rather, to discuss one of the different areas of IO psychology. And I'm thrilled to have Hannah Shields with us today. She is also one of our IO behind the scenes. She's huge and instrumental in everything we do here at Organizational Sherlocks. So thank you, Hannah, for joining me today and for talking about consulting.
Of course, Elizabeth, I'm so excited to be on this side of things today. It's a fun little mix-up we're doing.
It is, surely, right? I know. Yeah. I love it. It makes it a little bit fun and exciting and a little bit different, which is good.
Yes. So. And throw the listeners in for a little loop.
Yes, exactly. A little loop never hurts anyone. It can be a little bit fun. So as we had talked about in our previous episodes, we are really going to explore different types of IO psychology and different ways that people can work within it. And so today, Hannah is going to be asking me some questions, probably peppering me with some questions, but that's okay. I think I can handle it. About what it's like in the consulting arena. And I'm really excited about it because it's something I've been doing for a long time. And I know a lot of people who are really interested in maybe getting started. So I'll throw it over to you, Hannah. What are you most curious about?
Well, to start off, I'm really excited to learn about this as I'm entering the IO field. And this is something I'm actually interested in it too. So first, I just want to ask if you could share a bit about your journey into consulting and what led you to start down this road.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, wow, it's a big question, honestly. But what I will say is that I knew that consulting was something that was interesting to me, not necessarily in the IO space. So for our listeners, my husband has been a consultant forever, for as long as I can remember, and is also an owner of a business that consults. So I've been hearing from him for the last, I won't say how many years, because that I would probably get it wrong, number one, and get in trouble with my husband. And number two, I don't need to share how old I am, but that's all right. So I knew it was always something that I really found intriguing. And so when I made the decision to jump into IO psychology, having kind of that business psychology lens, I knew that consulting was something I really wanted to do. In particular, I think it was the variety that comes with consulting. You get to meet a lot of different people in a lot of different organizations and really understand kind of what makes those organizations and the people within it tick. And so my journey's been a little bit different than maybe some others. I didn't know what type of consulting, but I'm incredibly glad I landed in the IO consulting world and now own my own business as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that must be fun. You get to try new things every day and you probably get to learn more than probably would in a traditional job, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've worked for other consulting companies internally, in talent development, HR. And so I've seen what it's like to consult kind of from the inside out, but now being able to go outside in, it's just really rewarding and really fun. So I do love it.
Right. And with that, since you have had that opportunity to see, internal HR compared to external, how do you think that has shaped your style as a consultant and your knowledge that you have whenever you're entering a different space? What kind of things do you look for with having both sides of that?
That is a good question. It's actually, I would say something I've thought a little bit about. In particular, I can give you an example. There was a client that I worked with doing some organizational development within their HR team, right? And so trying to understand from an assessment perspective, both quantitative and qualitative, what was working, what wasn't, what was the perception of HR, and really then helping to develop some different, different things they could do to improve their HR function. And especially because it wasn't just within one state, it was across across the country and then also internationally as well. And I think what really helped me there was having the knowledge of what does it feel like to be in HR. I know, I'm sure, Morgan, I know I've talked to her about this a million times, but it can be a little tough at times. Not everyone has the best, the best view of HR. And so knowing what it felt like, and for that organization in general to be under a microscope while I'm a consultant coming in, I think having that knowledge and that experience helped me to build that rapport with them more genuinely, because we were able to work together and really have a conversation. And I could sense when maybe it felt uncomfortable or something was going on. So I do think having that experience helps me just kind of understand where people are coming from differently, as well as just, frankly, I think sometimes it can be a good idea to start there, right? Build that credibility, build up your experience so that when you're ready to take that next step into consulting, you're bringing that credibility with you, and being able to kind of talk the talk and walk the walk, if you'd like to think about it that way too.
Yeah. And that's such a wonderful skill, not only in consulting, but to be able to just enter any workplace and be able to take the time to actually connect with the people that you're working with, because then you're able to better understand what they need rather than coming in with your own preconceptions of what they need. And that takes away from your ability to see the truth in front of you, right?
Yeah. There's nothing worse, in my opinion, than coming in and saying, this is the type of organizational structure you need, or this is what you should do, and kind of telling people what to do. I'm a huge believer that, people are the experts in their own lives and they're the experts in their own companies. And so, while I might be helping them kind of figure out and guiding them a little bit to think about things maybe a little bit differently, or to expand their viewpoint or something like that, I'm not typically a consultant who comes in and says, you need to exactly do this. There's a little bit of flexibility, especially when it comes to change. Change is hard for people. And so if I said this is the exact right way to do it, which is not realistic, right? That's not going to help with any form of change management. So I think it's just kind of meeting people where they're at times as well.
Right. You can't put a cookie cutter on something that's not cookie cutter.
No, not even all. Not at all. I can't talk today. Good Lord, Hannah.
And also, this is a little bit off track here, but I saw on your LinkedIn, you were talking about a pivotal moment in your self-reflection that shifted your career path. And I kind of wanted to just see what that was and how it led you to where you are now.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Yeah. Okay. I will, full disclosure, be a little bit vulnerable for a moment, but if you've listened to some of our older episodes from season 1, you probably have heard that I started in the clinical psychology space as a counseling psychologist. So not a licensed one. I've not been licensed because I do IO psychology and I don't need to be, but I was working in a therapeutic environment, doing some assessments for things like ADHD and autism and all of that. And when I went on my postdoc after completing my doctorate degree, I was working at a clinic, and my boss at the time said, I really miss working with clients, right, in the therapy side. And she said, I know you kind of like building things and operationally doing things. Would you be okay with taking fewer clinical clients and doing more of the operational pieces, right? And I said, yeah, I'll give it a try. Like, that sounds good. I had owned a business for a while prior to that. And so I thought, yeah, I think I could do this. And frankly, I just fell in love. I absolutely loved it. So that started with building an assessment practice. So the operations behind it, kind of building it from the ground up, talking about policies and procedures and all of those things. And then morphed into it, ended up being a merger with 4 companies and helping to facilitate that merger, both from a financial perspective, but also from the kind of the change management. How do we get the therapists and the psychologists kind of all in the same place where we're happy or at least, I guess, content with the merger that was happening. And so I think it was through that I remember sitting at an Outback Steakhouse, if you've ever been to an Outback Steakhouse, Hannah, sitting at an Outback Steakhouse, and my husband asked me, what do you want to be doing for the next 15 years of your life? Like, what does that look like? And it sounds crazy. I immediately started sobbing. And I said, I want to do business psychology. I love business and I love the people within it. And that was really, I think, that moment where I was honest with myself about what I wanted for the future and what that could look like. And then really that I had to go down a path of figuring out then, what skills did I bring to the table, having been traditionally trained, right? As a clinical individual, what skills can I bring? How can I transfer that? And what skills do I need to really bulk up? And so I spent some time working internally, and to do those things, as I mentioned. And so really it was kind of a consultant from within, if you will. But I do have to tell you, it's so funny. My program director for my doctorate degree, and this is so timely because she sent me a text message the other day of something I wrote in the first year of my program.
Oh my gosh.
The first year of my doctorate program. I know, it's absolutely wild. I'm going to read just a tiny bit of it to you because it's just super weird. Again, I was in a counseling psychology program, Hannah. Like I was not there to do IO, right? But I wrote down, I said, even after taking a master's level course, I never realized how much more there was to career counseling. I feel stronger in my ability to utilize the different theories in my work because there will likely be overlap, and I don't believe they will only apply to career counseling alone. And so I went down this whole path, and then I talked about how I wanted to work in business and bring some of these things in business. And I mean, that was close to 10 years ago. So anyway, that was a really long way to tell you that I think I maybe knew it internally before I ever actually acknowledged it. So
no, and I think you sharing that entire story is so important to hear because so many people go through time. I'm 23 and I've seen so many of my friends go to college and say, hey, I want to do this. I'm like, well, why? Well, I've always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But why? And it's funny that you see people start to realize oh, maybe I don't, because you can convince yourself I want to do this, but it's important to take a second and be like, do I? Is this actually what I want? Do I actually love this, or am I convincing myself, or is this something that I used to love and that it's just easier to assume that I still will because we're changing humans.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And actually, it's part of the book that I'm writing is about that in essence, where it's there's all of these things I think that happen kind of around us and to us, and then the things that happen inside of us that we also kind of place on ourselves, kind of, if you want to think about them as barriers of some kind, right? I know my mom always used to tell me, oh, you're so social, you're so extroverted, but newsflash, I'm actually quite not. I'm pretty introverted, right? But I brought that with me for so long. And then to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to be honest and real with myself, I think was a pretty powerful experience. And like you said, people can change and your interests can change. And I think it's all about how do we translate what we know, what we're good at, all of those different skill sets into something that can be unique, right? And I think that's the cool thing. I felt myself going down a tangent away from consulting, but I'm going to bring it back right now, just so you know. I think that's how, as a consultant, sometimes it can be a little bit lonely if you're not working in a big consulting firm. I'm not going to lie, but it's what makes you unique, right? What it brings it together. And the business that I have today would not be what it is had I not gone through that process of self-reflection, And so I would encourage our listeners to think about that and really think about the fact that I guess just it's a little bit of openness, be open to the things that might come and, be interested in what does it all mean? Like you said, what's the why?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to toss it back on you just really fast. Okay. Why IO psychology for you then? I'm curious.
So I actually thought I wanted to be a therapist as well.
Okay.
And I have been told, this is funny because I've been told my entire life, 9 years old.
Oh yeah.
You should be a therapist. Okay. And, I love talking to people. I love helping people. And that's part of my nature. And then I did a leadership program in my undergrad, and I was facilitating and making workshops and things like that. And it was the most life-changing, inspirational experience ever that I've ever had.
Right.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do this all the time.
Mhm.
Because to be able to make such a powerful impact on others in a way that was very structured and just helping them see, oh my gosh, I have the potential to do more than what the like the strength that I thought that I had and the vision that I thought that I had for myself is so off par than what I'm capable of doing.
Right.
And then I honestly didn't know about IO psychology.
Mhm.
And I learned about it and I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this. And I love how it gives me the opportunity to work with people and create change in a positive way.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of different things that I could do. Like you said, with consulting, I love being able to do so many different things.
Right.
And I feel like it opens up your door. If you're somebody who's so interested in this one particular thing, it gives you this opportunity to do so many different things, but be an expert on that thing that you're obsessed with, right?
Absolutely. That was perfectly said. Thank you for sharing. I know I did not give you a heads up on that. So thank you. I mean, and just so you're aware, the book that I'm writing, I'm gonna like dedicate to you because it's very similar to what I'm writing about. Like that's a really powerful, it's a really powerful experience. And then like thinking about it as a consultant, there are times where you're working with people who maybe are caged in like that too, or feel kind of pressured, right? And through your work with them, whether it's through coaching or just simply having like a genuine, like a genuine helpful relationship, right? Professional relationship with them, they might start to see things a little bit differently. And it's just such a cool experience. I've had people who've said to like come back and said, I don't know if you realized it, but you said this one thing and it made me like think about it. And I just kept thinking and thinking and thinking. To me, it didn't feel like it was anything. It was just me being my genuine self, like talking to them. But to them, it was something that they held on to and brought with them. And it led to something different in their lives. And I'm not taking credit for that. Again, there was no intentionality behind it. It was just being a genuine person. And I think that when we think about consulting, to me, that is one of the most important things I can bring to the table, is being genuine and truly caring about the people and the organizations that I'm working with. I really believe that wholeheartedly. So, yeah.
And when you have a positive experience with a consultant or with somebody doing work like that, you remember it forever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've had my own like coaches or mentors, if you want to kind of go down the mentor path, maybe less formal than a consultancy might be. And the impact on my life has been absolutely wild, like just so worth it. And frankly, the boss that I mentioned with the whole merger example that I gave, she's somebody I still call today, and we work in somewhat different worlds, and it's still, there's just something about it that I think is really important. And so I will say too, even from like when you are consulting, if you're doing it alone as kind of a one person company, if you're working within an organization, having those outside perspectives to constantly challenge you and help you think of things differently is vital in my mind to being a successful consultant, you know? So, yeah.
And that leads me into another question that I have. Since you aren't working with a larger consulting organization, how do you think that plays a role in the strength of, an IO psychologist in staying true to your own values and your own style? And what do you think the strengths of being with an organization that's a consultant company or being solo, and what do you not like about that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mentioned one thing earlier. I will say that working in a smaller, company, right? A solo company or even maybe a couple of people, it does get a little bit lonely at times, right? And when you get a lot of work coming at you at one time, which does happen sometimes. I mentioned to you that I wrote 10 reports in the last few days. So there's a lot of reports to write.
Yeah.
When that does happen, it can feel a little bit lonely, and and from like a time management perspective, it can be a little bit more challenging, right?
Right.
However, stylistically and like the message and the marketing and the like experience I want my clients to have is solely up to me, right? So for my company, it's all about individual growth leading to collective strength. That was something that I feel so very strongly about, and that was what I wanted my marketing to be, right? However, I have worked in organizations as well, consulting organizations, where I have a little bit less influence over those things, you could say, right? I don't get to necessarily choose what marketing happens. I don't necessarily get to choose what battery, like what assessment tools I want to use. In this case, I have a lot more freedom.
Right.
But I will say though that everything lands on my shoulders, or people, you know, who work in a solo companies, it lands on their shoulders, right? They're doing the marketing. Typically, maybe they hire it out for another consultant in that area, but you know, they're typically doing the marketing and they're doing their billing and you know, taxes and all of those things. Whereas in a larger company, you have more infrastructure to support you working with your clients, even if you have maybe less choice in what that work looks like, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that there's good and bad and whatever in all sides, but I think that's true for every job, I would imagine. I think, you know, sometimes there's things that we don't like, and that's okay.
Right.
So.
And do you feel like the service that you're providing, you have more confidence and trust in the advice and things that you're giving because it is all going through you, as much as that is a lot more work?
Yeah.
You know, it is you doing it.
I think that's a bit of a maybe a both and. Like, yes, at times I personally feel more confident in what I'm saying because it does kind of fall on me. And there are times where I'm not quite sure. But I also think, talk about skills of a consultant, I think that's one of the best things that you can have in your toolbox, is kind of like a statement that you can use when you don't know the answer, right? And so for me, it's always, you know what, Hannah, that is a great question. I'm not 100% sure. And so I'm going to go check it out, talk to a few people, but I'll get back to you. And I think as a consultant, the number one thing is actually going back and talking to them about it. So I'm not afraid to say that. If I don't know, or I'm not sure, or I need more time to think about something because it's just not in the front of my mind, I'm comfortable saying that. And I think that because of the rapport built with my clients, they respect that, right? They'd rather me say, I'm not sure, but I'll get back to you, than to try to give them an answer that isn't actually going to be helpful.
Right.
And I think I don't think that's just consulting. I think that's in general.
Yeah. I think there's strength in acknowledging whenever you don't have the answer.
Yeah.
But then just making something up.
Exactly. Right.
You know?
And not ever, like, nobody has all the answers.
No.
Not ever, you know? So, yeah.
That's awesome. So what do you, like, what's the most common problem that you encounter in consulting?
Ooh, okay. So I will say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry,
Yeah.
or like roadblock.
I think it depends on the type of consulting you're doing. All right. So thinking about leadership, for example, you know, trying to help identify or develop leaders, right? I think that a lot of times people I want to say this, I'm not trying to generalize too much, but I think there are times where people or organizations don't realize that maybe someone will retire, or somebody wants to move on, or whatever it is. Or they don't give themselves enough kind of time to prepare the next leader coming in, right? So think about it like succession planning, for instance, right? So I think one of the most common things that I see is that, you know, they know that leadership development is needed, and they're not really sure what that should look like. Is it a training course? Is it something on, you know, a video that they watch? Is it an assessment with self-reflection and you know, customized coaching? Like, what does it look like, right? So I think that on that side, that's one of the most common things. I think if you're more of an organizational kind of OD or organizational development consultant, a lot of times it's because something's not working, right? maybe there's a poor experience with a department in an organization, or the organization is incredibly siloed and they're trying to figure out how to kind of bring the functions together. Or even sometimes profitability is going down and their customers are not happy with the service or product or whatever it is. And so I really think that the problems that you see depend on the type of consulting that you're doing. Is that fair?
Yes. No, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And consulting is a wide career path in a lot of different industries. So how does an IO psychologist consultant differ from, marketing or anything else?
That's an interesting question. As you started asking it, I was like trying not to formulate a thought in my head, but I did a little bit. I think that because IO psychology is so broad, this is going to only kind of answer your question, just so you know, but because it is so broad and there's so many different things people can do within the field of IO psychology, I think it's tempting. As an IO psychologist, I think it's tempting to want to do it all. Right? When you think about consultants in other fields, take, as you said, marketing, right? If they are in marketing and what they do is, SEO and websites and that kind of stuff, it's a little bit more focused, right? Think about like my husband's company, they do CRM and they do, different types of, Power Platform and that kind of stuff. They're a Microsoft partner. So they do all these Microsoft things, right? Not every one of their consultants knows the ins and outs of every single one of those systems, even though they as a company offer it. I don't know all of their ins and outs, but I can say that like some of them are experts in certain things, right? So I say all of that to say that because IO psychology is so broad, I really believe that it's beneficial for consultants, if they're wanting to consult, to look at what do you enjoy doing? Like what gets you out of bed in the morning? How do you want to help people? How do you want to help organizations? And don't be afraid to carve out a little bit of a niche, because you can't possibly do it all. There's just not enough time in the day.
Right.
So I don't know if that really answers the question, but I will say that is something I've noticed, and it's tempted me to. Like, yes, yep. I can do that, right? I probably could, but the question is like, am I going to be as invested in this one thing versus the other things? Because, what do I enjoy doing and what sets me apart as a company? So.
Right. And for somebody who's entering the IO space, whether they're early in their career or had a similar path as you and decided to have a career change, what questions do you think that they should be asking themselves whenever they're in a position to be able to find those answers?
Ooh.
And what positions should they put themselves in? Because, obviously you don't want to put too much on your plate, but you also want to expose yourself to the most you can. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like I said before, I think it's, what do you enjoy doing? Like what brings you joy? I mean, maybe even, I guess throwing my husband's question back at everyone else, like, what do you want to be doing in 15 years? Like, what does that look like? What would that feel like? And what would that look like? Right now, I know you can't, say what's going to happen in the future. But I think just kind of asking yourself those questions, maybe even flipping on its head too. And what don't you want to be doing? Right. What doesn't bring you joy? As far as those experiences go, I think everyone has their own journey and their own path. And so I'm not going to say that there's one right way to do it, because there's not. But I do think that, whether it's through employment, you take a job, you learn, you develop, all of those things, I think that can be really beneficial. I think mentorship can be really beneficial, whether it's formal or informal. I've done a lot of courses. I've went to different conferences, like just to get exposure to different things. It doesn't have to all come from, a job or employment. I think there's a lot of other creative ways to learn what it's all about. Even in the doctor program that I teach in, I think it's called, I have to think. I can't remember exactly what the book is called, but it's something about the consultant's guide to success or something like that. And I think that book is really helpful because it, at least for me, it's helpful for me to think about like, well, what else am I missing? You know, because I know I'm not perfect. So like, what am I missing? What do I need to build? And how can I keep growing? So I think there's just a lot of different ways to do it, you know?
Totally.
And not seeing it as a one size fits all. Like again, everyone has their own path and they just have to surround themselves with the people who are going to help them go down that path in a way that makes sense for them.
Totally.
Yeah.
And what are some misconceptions that you've encountered as being an IO consultant?
Oh my gosh, my absolute favorite is that I'm a clinical psychologist working within business, right? Especially when it comes to coaching, because they'll say either like, oh, so we're going to do therapy. I'm like, no, actually we're not. Like, I'm not here to do therapy. If you have a therapist, that's lovely. I'm happy. Like again, my own bias, like everyone should have a therapist, but that's me. Yeah, well, I'm happy that you agree with me, but yeah, like, I think that is probably the biggest misconception is like, you're here to, I guess, either A, be in therapy and business, or B, that you're here to fix all of my problems and that like the consultant's going to be the one to do it. There's a lot of knowledge and theory and practice and all of those things we can bring in. And in no way would I ever say no to helping an organization implement whatever changes that they want to do, or thinking about change management and helping them come up with a plan. And there has to be buy-in within an organization to make change, so that the actual actions should come from, I think the company with the support, and the, if guidance is what they want and need, the guidance of a consultant. So.
Right. And so whenever you're working with these organizations, I know you work with individuals and also teams. So how do you approach growth and how do you change your styles of consulting in these settings?
Well, okay. So I'm a huge believer too, that like, things can be scaffolded, right? So like even individual awareness and growth, you can build upon that for the team, right? You can help the team understand, who am I? What are my strengths? What are my areas for development? How can you as my team, right? Think of it, maybe let's just, for example, a leadership team, right? How can the leadership team help both kind of utilize you when you're using your strengths, but also help you develop as you go? Like, I think that development can really be a collaborative experience. And so like for me, a lot of the time when I'm working with teams, it starts with the individuals on the team and getting to know them and what are the similarities and what are some of those differences and where are their gaps, where are their really strong strengths, their shining spots, if you will, and then being able to kind of pull it all together in a way that helps them understand each other and helps them understand what path could, what path could they go down. So I don't see it as like I'm going to do this from a team perspective and I'm going to do this from an individual perspective. I do think that we can be really smart in how we use things. I think it helps individuals, helps teams. It saves companies money, or saves organizations money, when you're using the data you have in front of you instead of constantly like trying to pull for it. Now, I'm not saying I love data. So, I mean, I'm fine with data, but I do think be really smart about how we use it. So, yeah,
it's really important to, get to know each individual before you see them as a group. But
exactly.
As we kind of wrap up, I do want to throw the question back at you from your husband again.
Oh,
and as you are now living your dream, but with that, in the next 15 years, what are some of the main things that you hope to accomplish? What does that look like?
Oh my gosh. I should have known this was coming. What are the things in the next 15 years? Yes, gosh, that's a good question, Hannah. I would love to have, and this, you can probably tell like where my heart is at. It's like I'm like burying my soul on this episode, but I would love to offer an internship in IO psychology for consultants. I wish that there was more available to people. I would like to offer a paid internship because I'm also not a huge believer that people should do unpaid internships. I understand the reasons why they do it, but I really wish they would. Pay them. So that is a big goal for me, is to really work with organizations, kind of build up that client load so that I can support having interns or early entry individuals working with me. And so we can learn together. So that is, I would say that's my number one, like, North Star, if you will. Yeah. Because I really believe that had nobody ever given me a chance, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I want to be able to help others find that chance as well. So that's one thing. But I just really love teaching. So I want to keep doing that and really just kind of building up, my leadership development and change management practice, and meeting new, really cool organizations, whether it's a nonprofit or government or, private company, whatever it is, doesn't matter to me. I just want to keep learning. So,
Right.
Ask me again in 15 years, okay, Hannah?
Yes, I will. We'll check in on internship.
That works for me. Yes, let's make that happen. That'd be great. Well, thank you so much, Hannah, for the chat today. I was not expecting to go down like a personal route. I'm glad I did, though, because actually it's a little bit, it's fun, and it's going to make me think, I think, for the rest of the day. So thank you so much. And with that, listeners, this concludes another intriguing episode of Organizational Sherlocks. I'm Elizabeth Flemming.
And I'm Hannah Shields, reminding you that the journey to success is an ongoing investigation.
Remember to stay curious, stay strategic, and keep utilizing insights to decode your business mysteries.
Join us every Tuesday for your next Whodunit. This is Organizational Sherlocks closing today's case.
We'll see you next time.